Vain, Book 1, written by Leah. Do you love me? She asked, with a dull expression on her face. Her brownish red eyes seemed to stare through his soul, revealing how vulnerable he was in front of her. He nodded without any doubt in his mind, as his heart pounded like a drum. Very much so. Everything from the tips of your toes to the top of your head. I love everything about you, he said, as his eyes shook with excitement. Although he had said all the right words that would have made her heart melt, she was guarded. She believed every man was the same, even if that person was the king. Ivy felt uncomfortable under the king's stare. However, there was nothing she could do. Their wedding was a week away, so no one thought it was strange that he would come to see her so late at night. The sudden visit left her only enough time to grab a shawl to cover a little of her exposed skin. Her fingers gripped the shawl tightly as her anxiety ran rampant. She sat on the sofa stiff as the king drooled over her, hoping he would do nothing more. The king noticed his bride's unwilling expression, assuming she was just nervous. Wanting to make her feel at ease, he adjusted himself on the sofa where they sat. He turned his back to Ivy and leaned back to rest his head on her lap. Ivy's warmth seemed to relieve the stress of the day, and he closed his eyes for a while. My love, if only our wedding day would come faster. It would be the happiest day of my life as king, he said, and Ivy closed her eyes as if she was in pain. She reached for her necklace and began to lightly rub her thumb against the shiny green stone. Feeling the cool stone, she contemplated whether or not the king's affection was real. Ivy was chosen to become the king's wife after he fell for her beautiful looks and lovely voice. She had everything the king wanted, beauty and charm, even though the king's mother, the Queen Dowager, didn't approve of Ivy because her father wasn't a minister like the other candidates. That didn't stop Ian, who defied her wishes to marry a more suitable candidate. The king bribed her father with land, gold coins, and even a higher political position. This was how Ivy's father forced her to participate in the royal bride screen. With the power of the king behind her, it didn't take long before she was announced as his fiancée. She tried everything except taking her own life to get out of this unwanted engagement. However, it was all to no avail. It was later that night, after the king left, an intruder snuck into her room to kill her. The assassin was only moments from piercing her heart with his sword when she jolted from her sleep. Her eyes widened as she saw the gleam of the sword by the moonlight of the windows. She rolled over just in time as the sword stabbed into the mattress. She attempted to get up from the bed when the assassin pulled their sword from the mattress, swinging the blade towards her face. The blade sliced her face open, letting hot blood gush from her wound. She screamed in pain as she held her face, unable to see properly from the blood. The intruder proceeded to attack her as Ivy shouted out several commands to slow him down and to buy some time. Their scuffle was loud as she defended herself until station guards came to her rescue. The assassin failed to eliminate her, so they quickly retreated away. The blade sliced her face open, letting hot blood gush from her wound. She screamed in pain as she held her face, unable to see properly from the blood. The intruder proceeded to attack her as Ivy shouted out several commands to slow him down and to buy some time. Their scuffle was loud as she defended herself until station guards came to her rescue. The assassin failed to eliminate her, so they quickly retreated away. Once the intruder escaped through the window, Ivy felt as if the world had fallen, and she collapsed from blood loss. She sustained a deep cut from her left eyebrow to her cheekbone, damaging her left eye permanently. The same nightmare haunted Ivy's sleep. She woke up holding her left eye socket as the phantom pain from more than a year ago continued. The pain she felt was psychological, but it was unbearable. She didn't bother sitting up, as she just rocked back and forth until the pain subsided. She cried pitifully as she gripped the bed sheets for several minutes. Once the pain subsided, she gently touched the empty socket where her eye once was. Veins were protruding out of her forehead as she remembered the detestable king. She screamed and slammed her fists against the bed in anger. The humiliation she had to face after he kicked her out was all because she was no longer what he desired. She cursed him every day as she was reminded of him. Her pride was equally damaged, like the scar on her face. When she had gotten hurt, everything fell apart. Her father, who invested everything he had into Ivy, became angry as her wedding was called off. Everyone eventually found out about what happened, and he couldn't lift his head up in public. He was embarrassed from all his boasting about how his daughter would be queen. He blamed Ivy even though she had gotten hurt, and he started to abuse her. At first it was verbal, as he belittled her for being useless. When she talked back, he became violent towards her, throwing things, hitting her with his bare hands, and pulling her by her hair whenever she fell to her knees. Instead of a queen with respect and honor, she became a beaten dog with nothing. A few months of enduring the abuse by her father's hands, she left home. Ivy took whatever she had of any value and abandoned her father. Although she had nowhere to go and no one to rely on, Ivy eventually ended up staying in hotels. She needed to find a way to live, but soon realized how difficult that was with only one skill. That skill was music. Since her childhood, Ivy excelled in music. She had the voice of a siren and played the piano like a prodigy. She could write her own music, so she began to seek out employment as a singer. No one wanted a scarred singer that would scare away guests, so she was rejected repeatedly. And after a while, her money began running low. Knowing she wouldn't be able to afford staying in a hotel, she became desperate and would take anything offered to her. And that is what she did. She became a private singer in a host house. The pay was decent, and they even offered room and board. It seemed like everything was looking up for her, but reality was harsh on Ivy. With an infamous reputation of being seducers, private singers would perform for individuals of high society. However, many of the private singers had affairs with their clients or paid for additional services. Ivy, being unfamiliar with the real world, suffered by the hands of many men. It was rough for her to adjust to her new life. However, she found contentment inside her quiet life. She kept to herself to avoid trouble. However, many believed she was arrogant and proud. To add on to it, she was required to cover her face within the establishment and use the veil to hide her scar. So many rumors about her started to spread. Eventually, word got out that Ivy was once a candidate to become the king's bride. Many laughed at her fallen status out of jealousy, while others hated her for no reason at all. They began calling her by the nickname Queen of the Night, as to mock her and degrade her. Not taking any of it to heart, she sung for many prestigious families, and her reputation grew. Although she hated her life, she felt at ease whenever she sung for her clients. The pure joy on their faces as they held on to her every note relieved her troubled heart. It was the only way she endured it day after day. Thanks for listening to my first ever audio story. Please forgive my clumsy reading and writing. It's my first novel I've ever completed, and my first time doing anything like this. I hope in time that I get better and that you enjoy my storytelling a lot more. Until next time, don't forget to listen. Bye.